Hi everyone, number one Adam Raccoon fan here. I don't think I can change my username from number one Marmaduke fan to number one Adam Raccoon fan, but at least while we're finishing this series, we're gonna honor in honor of this book and how much it's helping me get over SJW Marvel. I'm number one Adam Raccoon fan for the time being. So in each video, I have tried to find a thesis which is its own thesis and not just a restatement of what I've said in the other videos. I'm now kind of reaching the point where I feel like I've said everything I can say about Glen Keane's style, except just finding new examples of the good things I'm finding. We'll see if that changes, but this is a story which is prompting me down a completely different direction and thinking about morality and storytelling. And ever since my first video on the Legend of Zelda manga, I have talked about social justice and politics and kind of asked questions like, well, what's the relation of politics to storytelling, and how does storytelling change how people think about the world? Well, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Is Andrew Breitbart used to say that the problem with the Republican Party is that politics is downstream of culture, and the Republican Party only cares about politics in the next election, and the American left cares about the culture. And they don't need to be culture warriors because they already control most of the culture, and they inform the rest of the world of their values and beliefs. So the American left doesn't need to take over late night comedy. The late night comedy is already, as a whole, teaches people to think using kind of center left arguments. My read on the American political situation is not that we're a center right country with a silent majority. It's that we're a center left country, and the center left has gotten scared by the rising far left and how nutty and socialist it is, which has made strange bedfellows of kind of classical liberals and libertarians and conservatives. We don't have that much we agree on, actually. We disagree on some very fundamental issues, but we look to the very far fringe left, and that's scary. And then we look to the very far fringe right, and those guys are pretty scary. And Zach said this before. It's not right versus left, it's sane people versus everyone else. But the problem is that it once you get rid of the radical ideas, once you refute those, I don't want to get rid of anybody, but once you refute the bad ideas, and all that's left are like classical liberals, libertarians, and social conservatives, then all the same arguments crop up again, and we start yelling at each other again. A common foe can unite people for a little bit, but can't forever. And this book is getting at some fundamental moral questions where I've, in video after video, said, the Christian content is there. It's a part of the story. We can't ignore that part of the story. But in each video, I have argued that it is because Glen Keane is a good storyteller. He is putting it in his story in such a way that a child who doesn't understand what Christianity is could appreciate the story. An adult could appreciate the story, even if they don't like Christianity. They could still appreciate them as good works of art and good stories. And here is one where I think where we might be getting at a moral idea that's so fundamental. This might be the one, guys. This might be where we start getting some trigger warning moments and yelling at each other. But let's just dig in. I'm sure I'll have good things to say about the art. I know I want to get to the last page, so I'm going to skip one of the pages early on. So storybook time with number one Adam Raccoon fan. I remember when I tried to, none of you remember because no one was watching me because my channel was kind of pathetic, but I think one of my earliest videos was me cooking bacon, and the title of the video is going to be like, in which I attempt to refute moral relativism while cooking bacon. And I think I made it unlisted because it was embarrassingly bad, and my camera ran out of data, and I didn't know what I was doing. And aren't I so much better now, guys? Now I just fumble to try to get a box open. But moral relativism and storytelling has been something I've been thinking about as an undertone a lot on this channel. And finally, we've got a book where this might as well be Sola Scriptura, the children's book. Sorry, my Catholic bros. Sorry, my Orthodox bros. Well, again, because Glen Keane's such a good storyteller, his views are a subtext. So I'm being a little blunt and I'm playing up a bit how there's going to be political themes to this book and moral themes to this book, but I'm more blunt than Glen Keane is. So maybe he isn't maybe he didn't intend the same message I'm seeing in this book. So let's just dive in. Storybook time with number one Adam Raccoon fan, and we'll get to that when we get to that. So high above the trees, Sam the Sparrow is flying, and I like that this is a new character and he's introduced immediately because he's going to be a recurring character, and we need to know who he is. Down he flies to see Adam Raccoon building his own flying machine, and Adam Raccoon climbs his flying machine up a little cliff. And, you know, we've had a few establishing shots, and then after that, they go into the air. I'm going to skip a little bit of Adam Raccoon flying around. Every page is beautiful, and I wish I could talk about every page. But to avoid copyright problems, go buy this book. We're going to skip those pages and hop ahead. So what I was saying is that once he's in the air, it's a lot more white space. And the establishing shots with the scenes of nature helped us have a sense of where we are. We're in a pristine wood with streams and roads, so that when he goes in the air, then you don't need all those extra details. Your imagination can fill all that in, and then you can avoid having distracting things, right? So this crown is floating in midair, and there isn't a bunch of trees behind it confusing us. It's floating on white space, so we can understand everything. I love the gravity of his helmet flying off and Adam's in air, even though his machine has fallen. I love that Adam has squashed as he's landed right in King Aaron's arms, and King Aaron is clearly surprised, and he's clearly in mid-stride. Great physical comedy. That's an animator drawing poses for us. So King Aaron tells Adam that if he wants to fly, he's never going to be able to do it that way. So he takes him to his storehouse of wonderful treasures, and Aaron opens it up, and it's like a golden light, and Adam and Sam are mesmerized by the amazing things they see. Bicycles, all kinds of fans and helicopters and whirligigs and machines. And King Aaron pushes out a box for Adam Raccoon to look at. And I've noticed that when Adam Raccoon jumps in the air, the background is drawn so that he isn't floating on top of a line. It comes underneath him, so we understand he's clearly in the air, and he's not, no tangents. He's not fighting with that. And all right, so here's where we start getting, I think I'm just going to explicitly say what my read on this book is so that you can understand what my points are. So King Aaron says, hold on, Adam, you need this instruction book to show you how to do it. So Adam Raccoon needs an instruction book to build this flying machine. By my reading, the instruction book is the Holy Bible. And then King Aaron introduces Adam to Ernest, which is a name, and it's also, the word earnest means straightforward, honest, direct, not duplicitous, not lying to you. So Adam needs Ernest to help him put it together. So not only does Adam have the instruction book, the Word of God to live your life by, he also has an older person, an older and wiser brother to help him understand what he needs to do. So he needs someone to help him read and understand what the book means. All right. I think this is kind of inarguable that anyone would be able to see that that's what the story is getting at, and the themes build from there. But once again, because Glen Keane is a good storyteller, he has put those big ideas into a context where you could read this and not see any of that kind of religious undertone to it. So Ernest and Adam open up the box, and with a big sproing, that's a great explosive sound effect, and everything is radiating out from that point. Adam is just so childlike and excited about everything. Wow, look at all this stuff. Where do we begin? Adam said. And this is just a neat little scene. You know, I'm always talking about body language and expression. Body language and expression. That's what you need to connect with the characters. Keane always gets that. He never misses a beat on a single page. That when he needs to convey an idea, the characters do it, because that is what immerses you in the story. So Ernest starts reading instructions, and it sounds all technical, and Adam's frustrated. He thinks, well, we'll never do that. So, of course it will. So, let's see. This is going to take too long, Adam sighed. Of course it will, said the professor, who strolled out from behind the bushes. What do you expect when you do something the old-fashioned way? All right, the professor. He's dressed nice. He has eyeglasses. This is an intellectual. So let me talk more about the themes, and I'll present the dilemma, because the dilemma of this book is this Glen Keane telling a subtle story well, or is this Glen Keane preaching his worldview at us? And even though I generally agree with Glen Keane's worldview, I think this is another instance of Glen Keane telling us a story first, and the moral messages exist, but I still think he's being subtle. So that's what we can hash it out in the comments section. I'm sure this is going to get at everything moral and political that could possibly be. So here's my read. The professor is representing the intelligentsia. He is representing the modernist critique of the Word of God. The Word of God is old-fashioned. The professor has a new way that's better than that. In fact, yeah, I'm just remembering what I read. We have the new way now, says the professor, and he tosses the book into the bushes. And there's one. This is so important. I have to read this, and then I don't think I need to read the rest of it because this contains the key idea. There's one simple rule: do whatever feels right to you. So, in contrast to King Aaron and Ernest, who have told Adam to follow the instruction book to build his flying machine, the professor's rule is one sentence: do whatever feels right to you. And I'm thinking about a few things that this could be. Is this Epicureanism, this sort of Greek philosophy that if it feels good, then it is good within reason. So it feels good to eat, food is good. That's how we know food is good, because it feels good to eat it. Or could this be maybe like, that's an ancient philosophy. Is this maybe a more modern philosophy like situational ethics? You know it's right based on the situation, and if it feels right to do it. If it feels right to you to do it, then it is right. Moral subjectivism. So here's where we get into the big moral quandary that's going to divide everybody and start all the arguments. You could be an atheist who is an objectivist. All of Ayn Rand's followers, they literally call themselves the objectivists, and they say, we believe in objective truth and we're atheists. But they're kind of the minority, right? At least that's my read on internet atheism, is that the more common belief system is we're atheists, therefore everything is subjective, and you can't claim an objective basis for truth because there's nothing you can base that on. So why is that? Why are the objectivists, why are the Ayn Rand types seem to be the minority and the more subjective types seem to be the majority? That's just my general impression, but we're getting at a fundamental moral question that isn't just important to Christians, it's important to everybody. And in this story, the professor is representing an intellectual academic who is arguing for a relativism. If it feels right, do it that way. Including if it's building a flying machine. If it feels right, build the flying machine the way you feel it should be built, rather than the way the old fashioned instruction book says it should be built. So I think it's weird that Ernest the turtle, has hair, but I guess that's just an aspect of them being a bit more humanoid. So a humanoid aspect is, when sketching them, Keane gave the turtle a little bit the indication of having a hairline. So Adam takes the professor's advice. He rejects the old-fashioned way in the instruction book, and he begins to attach the parts however he feels. Whatever feels right to him, he attaches that to that. And I think it's noteworthy that Ernest is horrified, and Sam, the little bird, is kind of excited by all this. He thinks this is a lot of fun. So what I like about this is even a little kid could kind of sense where this is going. They know that this is not going to work, probably even just from their childhood experiences or from other stories. Kids are a lot more story savvy than you think they are. So everyone knows where this is going, including little kids. King Aaron shows up. Where's the book, Adam? And Adam tells the king he's thrown the book away and he's been shown the new way. And King Aaron just says, I can't watch, King Aaron said, as Adam continues to build. So he's just covering his eyes. Captain Picard facepalm. He knows where this is going, and we have a sense where this is going. We're dreading the conclusion. So Adam completes his machine, the X-25, and he's still like a little kid. He's still enthusiastic about it, and King Aaron isn't sure what's going on. And as it fires up, King Aaron kind of tells him to come down. And here's where we're going to continue the sort of moral fable, the moral parable of this story. So Adam asks the professor, well, you said this would work, right, professor? And won't you join me on the flying machine? And the professor says, yes, it's perfectly safe, but he will not join Adam in the flying machine. So the professor gave Adam this advice on how to build this machine. But when it comes to the question of will he put his caboose on the line for it, the professor runs off. I've got some important reading to do. Good luck. And Ernest is just looking at him skeptically. So, based on my
understanding of what this parable is. Let's continue pushing the idea forward. So I've read this as this is the secular academy, which rejects the Bible and prefers a new way. And the new way is moral relativism. When push comes to shove, this professor doesn't want to trust himself to a flying machine that was built using subjectivism rather than objectivism. There was objective truth in the book on how to build this flying machine correctly. Adam used his subjective opinion to build the flying machine, and the professor doesn't want to be anywhere near that kind of flying machine. And I think the parallel to this would be academics who kind of revolutionize their students. You know, Marxism's a great idea, but they all know that if there was a Marxist revolution, they'd be the first. They'd be the rich who would get eaten. Their stuff would get smashed, and they'd be burned on the stake, and all their property would be taken by the radicals. So in their heads, they advocate this radical philosophy until it comes time for them to live with the consequences of that radical philosophy. Marxism's just one example. A professor might argue that all sex is completely subjective. If sex feels good, you should do it. There shouldn't be any objective limitations on sex. But you don't see those professors going out and having orgies 7 days a week and getting STDs. Man, the maturity of this video just went up tenfold. But pretty much the point is, you don't see people who advocate moral relativism living their lives according to completely relativistic standards. They seem to live their lives according to the moral standards which promote a good life. They don't frivol away their money on drink and gambling. They know it's good to save your money, right? So, of course, off the machine blast, there's this great sound effect, and Adam goes flying into the air in a big spiral. I'm going to skip a little more just to be safe. I love the energy of this drawing. Everything's flying back. Sam's in the machine with Adam experiencing this. Everything's vibrating. Adam's kind of going nuts, and it's spiraling out of control. Whoosh, crashed into the river with a splash. And Sam saves Adam and kind of brings him down gently to the ground. I love Adam's expression when he wakes up. It reminds me of, Burp Squad, Calvin and Hobbes, which sometimes have these over-the-top reactions and expressions, and I'm getting an echo of that in Keane here. So Adam wakes up, and he asks King Aaron for a second chance and promises that this time he'll follow the book, and he will listen to Ernest. And the king agrees. They rescue the wreckage out of the river, and this time Adam follows the instructions. And as King Aaron looks up into the sky, there's Adam with the X-25 Jet Hawk, and it looks awesome, and he's flying with Ernest and Sam. He recognizes their contributions, and following the book is what allowed him to build this. And then Adam gets to put on an air show, and it's a big explosive climax. Okay, this is a moral fable, which clearly is touching on, kind of moral subjectivism versus moral objectivism. Adam used an objective standard, the instruction book, to build his jet, and he was able to build his jet, and it worked. The reason I'm thinking about this so much is this Glen Keane preaching at me? Or is this Glen Keane telling me a story where his worldview informs the story? And this is a big debate, right? Should politics be in art? Should politics be in kids' stories? Or are politics inevitable? And I think the left has this sense that if you want to promote your politics, you have to convince the next generation. You have to play the long game. So they'll have channels like Queer Kid stuff. They will make children's books promoting their ideology and their ideas because they want to persuade the next generation through the stories that they tell that they are right. So there are so many, 50 genders books, don't conform to gender norms books, because the left has this game in mind, the long game of 30, 50, 60 years down the road. They want every child to have been inculcated with these ideas through the books they've read. You inform your worldview, not just based on what you read in the newspaper today, but on everything that has come before and everything that you have read leading up to this point. And that gut level reaction is sometimes a lot more important than just what you think about in your head. You can think through an argument and appraise an argument and say, well, the argument is flawed in this way, but but the rest of your brain is kind of instinctual and goes on a gut response. You don't logically think through whether you want chocolate or vanilla ice cream. You go with your gut on that kind of a decision. So I still think that Glen Keane, even though this is a story that is transparently about a moral philosophy, a moral worldview, has facilitated his worldview into a story that's just transparently obvious. So I have given you kind of my read as a conservative Christian on the intention and the goals of this story. So let's make it broader. An objectivist atheist, an atheist who believes in objective moral values, but doesn't necessarily believe in the Bible. Well, they could probably pick up the Christian symbolism and the instruction book being a fill-in for the Bible, but they would agree with the story that if you want to build a flying machine, use objective facts on how to build a flying machine, and don't just slam together a bunch of pieces and trust your life on that. If you were a moral subjectivist and read this story, you could enjoy this story as a story. Maybe if you just missed the religious symbolism or the religious and philosophical themes in it, but this is just the one I've read so far where that idea hit me the most. And I hate stories like God's Not Dead, where the atheist character is just a big, mean, nasty dude, and the Christian characters are all, wonderful, bubbly, cheery dudes, because those aren't stories. They're Jack Chick tracks that are anti-stories. They're just trying to sell a few arguments using the vehicle of the story, but the stories suffer and the art suffers. This is complemented by Glen Keane's excellent art. This is an example where Glen Keane has given us a moral fable. But my argument in favor of Glen Keane here is that I think it's impossible for you to tell a story without you having some sense of what is right and wrong, and you can't get away from that. If you think stealing is wrong, maybe you could try to tell a story where the moral of the story is stealing is right, but you're not going to be able to tell that story from your heart. You could tell a story where there's a thief character and you paint a sympathetic portrait of a thief character. But if you believe that stealing is wrong, you can't tell a story where the moral of the story is stealing is good. You should steal. If you believe in your heart that there are objective truths and that God's word is the true way, you can't write a story where you pretend the opposite of that. So Glen Keane is giving us hints of his worldview because he's honest. I think he's honest and open about his beliefs and what his worldview is, even when he's facilitating that into a story. There's no way he could have written this story other than the way it is, because this reflects how Glen Keane looks at the world. And even a person who disagrees with Glen Keane, I think, could see the common sense in the argument this book is presenting. You can't take morality out of stories. Aesop's fables are essentially moral fables that are also good stories. And in my last video, I got so excited and I said, storytelling is about morals. It's about humanity. It's about conveying your love for life and your love for humanity to others through your art and through your storytelling. And here I think that Glen Keane is tipping his hat a bit about how he sees the world in a way that's probably a little more controversial. So have it out in that comment section, guys. I love you. I'm #1 Adam Raccoon fan. Catch you later.